Corruption in the Capitol. Anyone surprised? Death toll from illegals. Redistricting. Turnabout is fair play. This is Dr. David D. Shine for Saving America with my own take on key stories from this past week focused on politics and business. And it's been another wall-to-wall week. New York City on the cliff. It's an interesting twist for me. I made a quick trip to New York City last weekend for a family event. My observations are not very positive. I flew into LaGuardia and stayed in Brooklyn. I do not understand anyone wanting to live there. The noise level is ridiculous. Traffic was at a standstill most of the time. Naturally, the big focus is on the fast approaching mayoral election. As I call him, the dirty commie, Mamdani is still way in the lead. Remember, I grew up during the first Cold War. The label of Democrat socialist, in my opinion, is just silliness. Call him what he is for goodness sake. Anti-Semite fits. Anti-American values fits. Why would any sensible American vote for this clown? The current mayor, Eric Adams, has already dropped out. That was a surprise for me. Generally, the incumbent always has an advantage. Also, given the chronic mess that is New York City, I do not think that he did that bad a job. Many are pushing Curtis Silva, the GOP candidate, to drop out in order to give Andrew Cuomo a one-on-one with Mamdani. I can see both sides to this. This also presumes that sensible people would move from Sliwa to Cuomo. However, Cuomo's record is terrible. We all remember him sending seniors with COVID to retirement homes where they could sicken other seniors. He also led the no cash bail movement. Picking one loser over another is hard to do. If the commie is elected, even though many of his platform planks are not likely to be enacted, I expect the exodus of wealthy and middle class will accelerate like nobody's business. I say accelerate since that exodus has been rolling for about 2 decades now. Corruption in the Capitol. Anyone surprised? Many who comment on LinkedIn are eager to see some real prosecutions after the total misuse of the U.S. justice system under the Biden-Harris administration. Well, first there are the indictments. Very recently, John Bolton, who was an insider to Trump and then turned against him, has been indicted for both possessing secret government materials and sharing them with others who are not authorized. Staying with the good news, former FBI director and generally a jerk, in my considered opinion, was indicted for lying to Congress. And that, of course, is Jim Comey. And he has vigorously protested and raised legal challenges. Let's see how that goes. And of course, the most fitting indictment of all, New York Attorney General Letitia James charged with mortgage fraud, which is hilarious given that is what she claimed that Trump did. She has made some very boisterous speeches following her indictment. Frankly, I wanted to see her convicted before her silly speeches. Now, I really want to see her in prison. No indictment yet for former Trump prosecutor Jack Smith, so we'll have to keep watching that one. Apparently, the Hatch Act is being invoked there. This is when federal employees get involved in certain political activities to influence an election. That charge does not light up for me, but hey, we'll see what happens. Look, an indictment or investigation is just that, a claim or trying to make a claim. After all, unless you're a J6er, every American is entitled to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. So let's see how these claims turn out. Maybe interesting. Adding humor to the mess as the lefties are screaming like they got their hands crushed in the car doors. Hey, the response by the current administration to the lawfare by the Biden-Harris administration is very mild so far, in my opinion. At the same time, the feds have confirmed that many of us careful observers already knew. Under the Biden-Harris administration, FEMA, the emergency folks, played political games, denying aid to areas like Florida and Western North Carolina, known to be conservative areas. Department of Homeland Security investigators identified aid distribution that included Hurricane Ida in 2021 to Hurricane Milton in 2024. Most of us heard the story of clowns on the federal payroll skipping houses that had a Trump sign or other GOP candidate sign out front. So, draining the swamp sounds like a good idea to me. Redistricting, turnabout is fair play. Speaking of the left screaming without a good reason, let's take a look at redistricting. Supposedly, the ball got rolling when Texas decided to redistrict, which produced a few more GOP seats. Well, Gavin No Sense got excited and decided to violate his own state laws to supposedly make it fair for Dems. The problem for No Sense is that it is a fraudulent claim. Here are the real stats. California, 40% GOP, 17% of the seats. Massachusetts, 35% GOP, no seats. Connecticut, 38% GOP, no seats. New York, 42% GOP, 26% of the seats. Maryland, 38% GOP, 12% of the seats. New Mexico, 44% GOP, no seats. This is a fraudulent, stupid deal that these Democrats are doing. And the interesting thing is, I think they're going to get it back in their face. When you complain when the other guys do it, but not when you guys do it, that is pure hypocrisy. The latest report is that North Carolina is redistricting to make sure the GOP there also pulls more seats. So this has turned into a fair game, and the GOP is now ready to play after many decades of being screwed by the Democrats. As my regular listeners know, I favor a nonpartisan districting system. Start in one corner of the state, count citizens and legal residents until the right number is reached, and that is District 1. Keep going. We need to end this crazy gerrymandering that's been going on for over 2 centuries in the United States. Running out of labor? Really? There is a mantra recently raised that Americans don't want to work and that we are running out of laborers due to the Trump administration policies. Well, balderdash. Every able-bodied person can have a job in America. Want the government to help you with medical care and groceries? Get up off your butt and go to work. It's that simple, folks. I was especially angry when I heard that the head of Land O'Lakes Dairy Products was claiming that there will be shortages of their products since illegals are gone. Hey, this is a brand name that charges top dollar for its products. Surely they can afford to pay American workers to do the job. And remember, in America, if someone is here illegally, they cannot work legally. For a century, we've had a guest farm worker program. That is still pending. There are people to pick crops under that program. At the same time, a bipartisan fix to the current immigration mess should be a high priority. I commented on this in a recent Saving America. We can expedite citizenship for good people without damaging our society. Funny how the Dems, when they controlled all 3 houses of government under Obama, did not implement these reforms. Cambodian Shen Zi is indicted. One story that I came across involves a worldwide swindle. Shen Zi, also known by first name Vincent, has been indicted on wire fraud conspiracy and money laundering conspiracy. He's the chairman of Prince Group. The allegations are that he ran compounds in Cambodia where victims were forced to perpetrate crypto scams to steal millions of dollars. The feds are reportedly holding $15 billion in cryptocurrency that Zi may have accumulated fraudulently. This is the kind of federal government activity that I like to see. The defendant, however, is not in custody. If convicted, he could do up to 40 years in prison. Yawn, no kings. The joke that is labeled No Kings took place on a Saturday where the weather was generally very good across the country. Given that we have not had a king since 1776, not sure what they wanted to accomplish. If they don't like the job Trump is doing, then show up at the ballot box, especially during primary elections. Media observers report that the folks who turned out were largely seniors. The production reminded me of the famous Mark Twain quip, "Golf is a good walk ruined." So the folkies got out there and hung with their neighbors, no problem there. Best I can tell, there was no violence in the rally. However, there was violence at an ICE facility in Portland, apparently during the rally. That is very good news that it was not super violent. The rest of us, like me, we were working for a living. Death toll from illegals. The big fraud, of course, is that illegals are wonderful, productive people who are here to help our country. The huge, well-funded anti-ICE protests throughout the country are based on this outright fraud. First, people with goodwill and real papers can apply to come to this country legally. Second, that means if you paid some trafficker to get you through the U.S. border, you are a criminal by definition. More importantly, these folks are not vetted, so criminals and residents of asylums made up a distinct portion of the illegals that flooded America during the Biden-Harris administration. Third, the claim is that folks here legally are being scooped up in the arrest by ICE. This is false on its face. ICE is seeking violent criminals. The tragedies include well-reported cases of young women being raped and murdered. Recently, major vehicular accidents have been involved in the news about illegals driving big rigs. How can any state give an illegal a CDL, commercial driver's license, who cannot speak English? It's totally ridiculous. While we were previously made aware of the heinous personal attacks around the country, recent headlines have involved major accidents. Very recently, 3 persons killed by an illegal from India driving an 18-wheeler in Southern California, and an illegal in Indiana driving 18-wheeler without a commercial driver's license killed 1. A couple months earlier in August, the DHS said an illegal with a California commercial driver's license driving a big rig killed 3 people in Florida. The worst recent case was 6 deaths in California's Napa Valley, caused by a drunk driver who was illegal and had been deported repeatedly. The point here is that state authorities should be acting in the interests of the public and not playing politics with people's lives. Further, the companies hiring these drivers without properly vetting them is a significant threat to public health and safety. Foreign grad students who pursue H-1B status will not have to pay the new $100,000 Trump fee. This is certainly good news. As I previously said, this new large fee is not justified and could hurt America's need for specific skills, especially in research and medicine. I note the Trump administration has confirmed that those already here on H-1Bs, if they leave and return, will not be subject to that big fee. There has now been a host of lawsuits filed to block this fee, including many pro-business groups usually viewed as on the Trump administration side. The DOJ files a motion for takeover of Lux Urban, a group of 3 New York City hotels. I mentioned I was in New York City recently, caught this actual local story before it went to the feds. And these poor travelers show up in New York City, hotels closed, they've lost their deposit, not getting them back. And it's a pretty tough story. So it ran on the CBS News local in New York City. So now the feds have gotten involved. So due to the Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing, the feds have the authority to step in. This makes a lot of sense, as reportedly the hotel chain kept accepting deposits and making reservations that it did not plan to keep. Sounds like fraud to me. The current head of the chain denies the claims and said that the travel agencies are responsible for their own bookings with clients. They are also fighting the appointment of a bankruptcy trustee by the feds. Presidential pardons, a bad idea. I've opposed presidential pardons for 3 decades. It seems to be getting worse. After the Exhibit A of abuse by the Biden administration, Trump just commuted the sentence and $500,000 fine for former GOP New York Congressman George Santos after serving only 3 months of a 7-year prison term. Note that Santos was convicted of significant crimes. I believe the GOP is supposed to stand for law and order. I reject the claim that he got a longer sentence or bigger fine due to being a Republican. NASA plans a nuclear reactor on the moon. The Secretary of Transportation, on behalf of NASA, announced that the agency is planning a nuclear reactor on the moon for commercial development there, as well as future travel to Mars. While this seems cool, I have to wonder, with a $37 trillion national debt, whether this is the best use of Americans' money. Target is reportedly be done by 2030, which is not that far off. As anyone catching any episode of Saving America knows, however, I am vehemently anti-CCP. Reports are that the CCP is sending a spacecraft to land on the other side of the moon. Rumors are that they may militarize first, or at least claim some or all of the moon. So if the purpose is to keep the CCP from claiming the moon, then I might sign off on this nuclear power deal. Let's watch and see what happens. This is Dr. David D. Shine. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.